Welcome to the Catering Feed, the Catering Growth Podcast, a show about growing your catering business and restaurant industry trends, powered by ezCater. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, a show about building successful restaurants, catering, and trends in the restaurant industry. I'm your host, Genevieve Babineau, and I'm here today with Scott Davis and Nicole Jackson from CoreLife Eatery. Scott is the president and chief concept officer, and Nicole is the director of off-premise at CoreLife. The two of them have been a fearless duo who worked together both first at Panera and now are really taking on the catering program at CoreLife. So I'm so happy to have you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You two have known each other for a very long time, and you've collaborated and partnered together with two different concepts now. So I would love if you could share a little bit about how you met and how you've come together as a duo over the past decade or so.
Absolutely. So I actually had the honor of meeting Scott many, many years ago at Panera Bread. I was hired with the company as an assistant manager, and I was working in our Cicero location, and Scott used to come in with his kids and get smoothies when they were little. So I remember that very fondly, and we'd have great conversations. And as my role continued to evolve with the company, Scott and I worked together on some product testing over the years as well.
So, so Nicole's being very modest about this, but
Per usual.
So I used to come in with my kids. They were like 5, 6 years old at the time, and they were the original smoothie kings. They just walked in like they owned the place, and Nicole always would make sure that they got taken care of. And it was a lot of fun, having her in the market where I was living, and sort of watching her evolve over the years as we built up a catering program and really used Syracuse to help drive it home. So we've got a lot of history.
And your roles have changed a little bit since then, right?
A little bit. Now we're both at a whole different company now, and I'm the president of CoreLife Eatery. Nicole's really running our whole catering program for us, so she's in a similar role, but she's the whole role now. So,
She's the Wonder Woman of catering
Absolutely.
at CoreLife.
Absolutely, yep.
Awesome. Well, before we get into talking about building concept and that journey all the way to sales and the customer touch point, I would really love to talk about some of the big news trends these days. We're hearing that FedEx is partnering with Pizza Hut and some other retail locations to build a robot that delivers. So I would love to hear your take. What is up with all of this automated delivery? What's your thoughts on it?
Well, it's funny, but every conference I go to, and every time I'm sort of around a bunch of restaurant folks, the topic always turns to some sort of technology, automation. The drones are going to be delivering our pizza. And, it's funny because every once in a while I just say, I just want to talk about food again.
Right.
And so it's kind of crazy, but it seems to be the topic everywhere you go. Everyone wants to talk technology.
Yeah, it's like there's always something you didn't know you needed, right? Yeah.
And it's funny, too, because I know at CoreLife, you're really focused on mindfulness, but you're also very dependent on technology to allow you to automate certain processes. So where do you see that balance between automation and connection?
Sure. So, with our, so we're starting a catering program as we speak, and we've been rolling it out. And, but that's come from a couple of years of being operating and getting a lot of requests from folks that are looking for catering type of offers or orders, right? And one of the things that we found, which was interesting, is there are a lot of folks out there looking for wellness, not healthy food, but also a little bit more wellness experience. So one of the things that we've been sort of playing around with is this idea of meal and a mat. So there are occasions where we'll actually come in with a catering order, and we'll have prearranged it to have like a yogi or someone who could actually hold a little class. Think about like 15 minutes of mindfulness in the middle of your big training seminar, right? It's a way to sort of bring a little bit of the sexier lifestyle of places like Facebook and Google, and what you think about is these cool places to work. It's a way to bring a little of that in with your catering order, and we're finding that's already starting to be something of interest for different folks out there. So
it's another way for us to provide an experience, and it's funny because when you look at technology and how it can arm you, right, it really can, and valuable information and having it all in one place to really effectively manage your client relationship, but I think for us, one of our focuses is how do we bring that experience to the next level? So how do we use technology, our CRM, for example, right, to, really organize our client information so that, we can reach out to them with things that would be interesting to them.
And I think the key is really when technology and automation, when it's able to automate processes that otherwise distracted from experience, from the customer relationship. Let us get back to what we love doing, which is running restaurants, bringing great customers, phenomenal catering. And so I think it's just so cool when you hear things about FedEx, because it's always interesting to see where these trends are going. But it sounds like, from what I hear from the two of you, that like you got to get to basics. And if technology is enhancing that experience and connection, well, then that's where the magic is.
Absolutely. And I think that's really the intention of it, right? I mean, technology is really meant to simplify so that we can get back to doing what's really important, which is connecting and providing that amazing experience for people.
And I think what you have done at CoreLife is all about connecting. And I think you can see that, honestly, through your menu.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that the personalization, the connection, and the personal touch, technology is important. But I think, you're going to see more. I think you'll see some people try to make it a facing forward, part of their business. For us, it's probably more of a I don't want to say back facing, but it's really a supporting element that then allows us to be making the human contact easier and more thoughtfully. So I think that's, for us, how we see that all playing out.
And allowing you to really scale your operations.
Yeah, no, exactly. When you're doing scratch recipes, it's great to be able to do that in the back room, but then have somebody in the front talking to you about your allergies and which food you want and which food you don't want, right? So it works to us both ways.
Everything in balance.
That's right.
Well, I would love to hear, you've worked with some pretty phenomenal brands. I think when people think of catering, Panera is one of those first brands that comes to mind, and you're the chief concept officer there. Can you talk about, both at Panera and now the wonderful work you're doing at CoreLife, how do you evolve that brand essence from an inside the four walls, concept to off premises?
Gotcha. Well, it sort of starts with listening to your customer all the time. I mean, everything always does, right? So for us, back in the early days at All Ball and Pen, it was a very simple sort of program where basically it was admins we were feeding and or actually servicing, who were feeding then their bosses and their clients. And then it sort of evolved into more of a sales-driven sort of program. And today we're seeing that, plus we're seeing a lot more sort of wellness coordinators trying to feed larger groups of folks. So it's been an evolution of the brands and of the sort of ways people use those brands over time. And it's interesting to see people getting healthier and more particular as the years go by.
Nicole, can you talk a little bit about how your approach to relationships has evolved over the years at these different brands?
Absolutely. I think it certainly has evolved, Genevieve, but I would say in a lot of ways it's remained the same. I think, at the core, it really needs to be about understanding, what's important to people so that, you can really solve for their need and, make a lasting connection with them to continue to do that over time. And so really, I think a couple things, as I've moved brands, I think it's really about understanding what we can offer that solves for the current needs of those folks that are going to be ordering today. At CoreLife, one of the things that we're really excited about is we can bring really amazing food that's also going to leave, their attendees or their clients feeling really great too. So that's something we're certainly excited about.
I think that's such a key trend right now, right? We're starting to think not just about how does the food that we eat day to day really fuel our bodies, the food that we eat in a restaurant, but now as you're taking this food off premises, how do you maintain that commitment? I think it's a really tough thing, but consumers are craving it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. So whenever I would travel for, professionally in the past, it's always one of those things where you go away to a conference or a meeting and that you're throwing your way of eating out the window, right? During lunch or dinner.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to regret this.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It doesn't count if it's not
right,
home,
it doesn't count.
There's going to be pizza for lunch, which, I do like pizza, but when you think about that, when you're the decision maker, the orderer for catering, you really have to consider the needs of your group. And our goal has really been to enable them to do that without adding any extra work for them and still providing something for everyone. So, you may have 3 people that, maybe have dietary, constraints or, a certain way of eating, but everyone is going to love the meal. And that's really our goal.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a tricky business because in today's world, people are so much more sensitive to what they're eating, where it's coming from. It's not like the old days where you could just lay out a whole big tray of sandwiches and be done. People want to know, is that steak grass fed? Is the chicken antibiotic free? Is there gluten in this meal or not? I mean, so being well armed with that stuff in today's world is really important, especially in the B2B side of catering.
Mm-hmm. Do you think a lot of those trends, whether it's paleo, primal, keto, plant-based, which trends do you see having more of a life to them and they're kind of here to stay? This is a new way of thinking. And which ones do you see maybe as a passing trend? Like, where is that balance?
Yeah, usually from my experience, anything that's extreme one way or the other probably is a fad. Right? If it means you stop eating a whole food group, probably not going to be around a long time. So, we tend to look at more sort of eating in moderation, eating cleaner. I think there's all different sort of modalities of eating. And some things work for some people, some things don't work for some people. And I think the idea is creating your own sort of version of what works for you today. I think there's a lot more knowledge out there. And I think that it really provides us an opportunity to help people understand what makes them feel better. Because you're at a big meeting, 2:00 in the afternoon, you don't want people falling asleep after eating this big meal. You want them energized. And that's our headset is we want to give you the power to take your meeting to a whole nother place.
So, and I think one other thing I would add to that is, our goal is really inclusivity, right? And so if you're ordering catering, you want to be mindful again of your group. And so I think, when you think about vegetarian, vegan, right, making sure that everyone is included in that meal. So our approach has really been a whole foods approach, which lends to so many different ways of eating. So it's not necessarily we have to align with one over the other, because as Scott pointed out, that some may be here to stay and some may not. But I think taking that whole foods approach is going to allow us to really, capture all of the audience and be able to deliver on what their needs are.
Plus, that common denominator is customization.
Exactly.
Right? And whether certain fads are going to stay or maybe kind of fizzle out, I think the main thing is that when you eat in a restaurant or at home, you get to make sure that what you're consuming is really what you want versus previously with catering, it was kind of, here's what's for lunch and take it or leave it.
Hold the onions, please.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So, since this is such a personal mission for you and you've seen how this has affected so many of your customers and your catering clients, how do you decide when certain menu items maybe just get the cut, get 86th? Do you have certain dietary or nutritional expectations for everything that's on your menu?
Well, usually it's about popularity.
Right.
I mean, if something's not selling, I'm going to be told by the operators long before customers usually get it out of here. So that's been something that's been forever.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter where you're at. If it's not selling, no one wants it. So there's that. But ultimately, what you got to be looking for is sort of what resonates for people. What do people keep coming back for? What if you have an LTO? Is this one of the things that when they take it away, they're mad at you?
Right.
That's a good sign. I remember doing a strawberry poppy seed salad at Panera a long time ago. And it was like, we took first year it went off the menu because of seasonality. Everyone was like, it was going to be a riot.
Right.
And, to our credit, we said, you know what, let's just leave it off. We'll bring it back. And, it's funny because every year that thing built more popularity because we took it away. If we'd left it there, it would eventually sort of would have tanked and sort of been an okay also ran, but bringing people in and out of something sometimes can really help.
I think as a duo, it's such a cool concept because everywhere from the, ideation of brand concept, what the ideals for the brand would be, how that evolves into a true vision, all the way then to Nicole, when you and your team are right in front of a catering customer. I think the two of you get to really look holistically at this whole journey. So how do you try to bring that menu to life for your clients when you're connecting with them?
That's a great question. It's funny because it all really starts with how Scott sees it in his head, right? And really how he envisions the concept.
It's a dangerous place.
And then you remember one of our first conversations, him kind of explaining what his thoughts were to me. And he was like, now, does that work, right? Like, does that work for catering clients or can we sell that, right? And so I think it's understanding, does it resonate with everybody? Does what we want to do or what we think is going to be the concept, does it really resonate with everyone? And is it going to help, drive our business and it's all for their need, right? So I think that's really been our goal. And it's been interesting, to partner and to see that and just to see kind of his creative process and how all of that comes to life.
How do you use catering to create an experience for your customers?
Many different ways, Genevieve. I think everything from, onboarding a new client, finding a prospective client and getting to know them, understanding who they are and what they do for the organization and what's important to them. I think that's a really big part of the experience, right? Showing that we are really invested in their success around this event is really key. The other piece, obviously, is operational execution, right? Executing the meal, delivering the meal, and meeting their expectations or exceeding them is really the goal. And then, staying connected with them. Hopefully in the beginning, we did a good job of understanding who they were and what the opportunities were so that we can continue to service them all year long and for many years to come.
The two of you have such alignment in the way you collaborate with each other. It's clearly you're an extension of each other. It's really incredible for our listeners to be able to hear your journey and how much the two of you have evolved over your own careers. But you've really built both concepts and catering programs at some pretty phenomenal concepts. And so I'm so grateful that you were able to join us today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Catering Feed, powered by EasyCater.